You're on.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call our December 22nd meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. If you can, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right, so for public comment, there was no public comment request submitted. For department comment and update, in our packet, we have a review of a written town clerk update provided by Jennifer Peterson. She's not here to present this, but she did want to share it with us. And I'll go ahead and read it because I think it'd be really nice for everyone to know all the hard work she's done since she's been elected. So Town Clerk's Office Report, November of 2025. As I have reached my first 6 months as Town Clerk, I wanted to share how much I've truly enjoyed stepping into this role. It's been both busy and rewarding, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the work of our town. I'm super grateful for the support and patience of everyone at Town Hall and for the kindness of everyone who has offered encouragement as I learn the ropes. I am looking forward to continuing to grow in the position and to finding new ways to make our office even more efficient and welcoming for the public. The following is an update on what's been happening in the clerk's office since May. For professional development. In early June, I attended the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association Summer Conference in Plymouth. The conference provided valuable opportunities to work with clerks and staff from across the state, deepen my understanding of the role, and gather practical advice for managing the many responsibilities of a town clerk. The workshops covered topics such as maintaining voter lists, parliamentary procedure and town meetings, vital records, record retention, and permitting. In September, I attended one day of the fall conference in Southridge, which included workshops on the town clerk's role in planning and zoning and on municipal budgeting. Most recently, in October, I participated in a one-day workshop in Hamilton focused on the annual town census and local elections. All these sessions have been extremely helpful, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Additionally, meeting and learning from clerks and many years of experience has strengthened both my confidence and my skills in the position. It's a great community of professionals who are very connected and willing to provide answers to any questions that pop up. There is an incredible amount of support in the clerk world. Under annual town census and voter inactivation process. In June, in compliance with Massachusetts general law, the clerk's office processed the annual mass inactivation list. Residents who did not return their annual town census by May 29, 2025 deadline were marked as inactive in the voter registration system. To regain active status, a voter must confirm with the clerk's office that they continue to reside in Groveland. As required by law, our office mailed postcards to 1,742 voters at a cost of $1,652.15 for postage and $661.96 for printing. Approximately 48% of the recipients have responded. To reduce costs and improve compliance in the future, we will focus on improving communication about the census through expanded use of the town website, social media reminders, and outreach at local elections. I added a section to the back of the 2026 census that explains why we collect this information annually and what the ramifications are if they are not returned. I'm hopeful that residents will respond more quickly to the census once they know how it affects the town financially, and that not returning it means an extra step to reactivate themselves as voters on Election Day. For records management and vault organization. This summer, we continued organizing materials in the vault. While long-term improvements would benefit from a more comprehensive storage system, we plan to defer any major requests until we have completed an inventory and identified the most efficient organizational strategy. Under vital records, the Massachusetts Registry of Vital Records recently implemented a new system for death registrations. As a small town, we don't have as many deaths to register as some of the larger municipalities with hospitals and nursing homes, but we are becoming familiar with the new procedures. Vital statistics recorded year-to-date include marriages, 27, births, 42, deaths, 60, dog licenses, 848. For the annual report, digitization. My predecessor, Beth Cuniff, began the process of digitizing all the town's annual reports using a much-appreciated grant from the CPC. The project was completed in September when we received digital copies of all the reports. Upon receipt, I organized the files and posted them on the town's website, where I hope residents have been able to access them, whether out of curiosity or necessity. The Town Clerk webpage. On July 1st, the town launched its new municipal website. As part of the transition, I reorganized the Town Clerk's department page to make information easier to find and understand. Since then, I've continued expanding the page to better serve the community. The recently digitized annual town reports are now available online, and I've added several historical records dating back to the mid-1800s that I located through genealogical research sites. These resources are now accessible for anyone conducting historic research in town. We've also added a comprehensive fee schedule so residents can quickly find the costs associated with certificates, licenses, and other services offered by the Town Clerk's office. For current projects through year-end and looking ahead. As the calendar year winds down, I've been putting together information for the annual report and fiscal year 2027 budget process, which I am looking forward to participating in. As I mentioned, I have created the 2026 census, and it has been sent to the vendor. I have tried to simplify some of the language on the reverse of the census forms in hopes to increasing our return rate. Once the new year begins, we will begin preparing the local election schedule for Monday, May 4th, 2026, as well as the annual town meeting to be held on April 27th, 2026. The census will be mailed by our vendor on January 5th. There are 2 elections next fall, the state primary on September 1st, 2026, and the state election on November 3rd, 2026. Looking ahead, I'm excited to continue in my role at Town Hall. My focus remains on maintaining accuracy and transparency in all our records and election processes, while finding ways to make the clerk's office even more accessible and efficient for residents. I'm grateful for the continued support of the Select Board, everyone I work with, and the community, and I look forward to continuing to serve the town of Groveland. That was a really great report.
Very good.
Very thorough. I'm thrilled that she's our town clerk. Any comments from the board? Start with you, Ed? No?
No, I think it was great, the level of detail and just the amount of information about what's going on in the town clerk's office, I thought was excellent.
Kathy?
No, yeah, I thought we got information, and always worry about this, the town census and voter registration issue, because personally, I never realized they were connected at all. I always thought you registered to vote, that's one thing. Return the town census, that's another thing. And I think it's just, some people were busy. It's a mailed thing, it's a piece of mail. Did it get there? Did they see it? Did they realize what it was? Or do they feel like it's another fishing expedition to get more of your personal information? Right. Some degree, I don't put my name or anything on anything unless I know for sure what it is. So I think it's a tough one to figure out how to do this so that people don't feel like their privacy is being impacted in any way, so that they don't feel like they're releasing information that they don't want on a piece of paper going through the mail system, hopefully back to the town hall. It could be some of that even nowadays, because there's just so much identity fraud, and every time you open an envelope, you're hearing from someone else who got hacked and your name was on the list, and you start to realize, wow, how do you keep your personal information safe? Who you are, where you live, who's at your home, what you do for a living. I don't know. And so I think that's maybe part of the problem too, and as the town gets larger, is something like that that's done by mail is difficult to collect. I know, mail-in surveys, back when I did some statistical research up in Vermont for the electric companies, we had multiple mailings to the sample that we wanted to get a return from in order to get a high enough percentage return. So if you're trying to get, 100% census return, I don't think it's possible, honestly, nowadays. And, well, any day, but especially nowadays. So I'm not sure what the answer is to the whole census thing. Does it have to be mailed on paper? Can it be done in a private, thing you open on your digital equipment, on your phone? I don't know. I just feel like I think she's trying really hard, and, but it's expensive. I went and bought 2 books of stamps, and I almost fell over. I haven't had to buy stamps in forever, and I was like, I had no idea they cost this much. It's expensive for the town to have to keep mailing this out. So, I don't know what the follow-up would be. Hopefully, she seems like she's really diligent, and she's looking into every possible avenue. Hopefully, she'll come up with some ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And she doesn't seem afraid of technology either.
No,
It seems
not
like
at
she's
all.
ready to educate, so.
Right. No, I really like the update. Very helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer Peterson.
One last thought for her, maybe when she does send out the census, maybe we could have a reminder at our meetings to remind people that it's been sent out. I don't know if it'll help all 20 people that watch us on television. I don't know, anything, maybe. I don't know.
Anything to help?
Maybe the Council on Aging can put it in their newsletter. Maybe we could try a community-wide reminder across the PTAs. Really try and get out to people to see if we can make that number go down a little bit that she has to mail back out to.
All right, excellent. So now for discussion and possible vote. First up, we have an update from our town study committee with Joe Demore.
Right, good evening, and thank you. I asked for this time so that, as a courtesy, the committee felt that we wanted to give the Select Board an update on the charge that you've given us. We're excited about the process in place. We've had 2 meetings. The next meeting is January 28th, and it's probably the most important one because we have now the components of the report that we're going to prepare for you for early spring. We don't have a hard date as to what that date is for the date of delivery of the report. Now, keep in mind that the report is made up of different chapters, and each member has taken ownership of one of those chapters and/or is supporting the writing of that chapter. And what we decided to do is we're going to keep it real simple language, not millions of words, a lot of bullet points, and a lot of data. Like, for example, Jen Peterson is spearheading the chapter on the electronic devices called electronic voting, which will bring in information about the vendors, the technology, the software that's involved, pros and cons about the technology, the costs. Patrick Milna is an attorney. He is spearheading an effort towards looking at the existing bylaws of town meeting and any potential impacts and pathways, but the decision for an electronic voting device implementation does reside with you, so we don't have to make any bylaw changes as far as I know. But, we're keeping an eye on Massachusetts law that applies should we decide to implement that device and that we're in compliance. One of the most important chapters, the most intriguing, is spearheaded by Patrick Dunn, who is literally gathering and crunching numbers. He is a true statistician and is really remarkable with the interpretation of the data that he presented to us. So I'm very excited. That's probably going to be the greatest driver of our recommendation as to whether or not we should move forward with electronic voting or not. Collateral to that is also data from the survey regarding whether or not we should be thinking about implementing Saturday meetings. Those are the two essential charges. Alyssa Lee, collaterally is well underway in concluding a very well put together survey through the Council on Aging, and we modeled that with her help. The survey about whether we should do electronic voting and Saturday meetings, that survey was basically created with the help of Alyssa, and we modeled it with the excellent survey that is separately being done by the Council on Aging. However, the work of that survey, the results of that survey are not part of this charge. We're lucky to have Alyssa as a subject matter specialist on surveys, but the Council on Aging survey is not anything reportable to you. It's not part of our jurisdiction, if you will. So if you take a look at what I presented to you, it's just simply the agenda for January 28th. I invite all to watch that meeting. We'll have it live. We're going to review the draft sections of developing the written report. We're going to review the results of town-wide meeting survey. And I think this evening on January 28th, we're probably going to finalize when are we going to close the survey so we can collect the data and start putting it into the report. It is an open survey. I think we had a little over 100 folks that responded. I think we're hopeful for 200, maybe more, but it'll be probably split somewhere in between. But at some point, we're going to have to decide as a committee and say, okay, we have the critical amount of people that have, or enough of a survey volume to be able to say, okay, we can read the tea leaves. And what are people telling us? They like electronic voting or they don't? They think Saturday meetings is good or is not, because that's what's going to drive our decisions to say, you know what, we think we should forget about both or do one or the other. And then ultimately it's your decision what to do, and we will support you. As a committee, we will publicly and openly support you. None of us are going to promote our own feelings and vote on the matter. I'm hoping for, we do have consensus. I'm hoping for unanimous voting, but we might not have unanimous voting. But after our voting is done and we make recommendations, we're going to be one united unit to support you, to complete our charge, out of respect and only because that's in the best interest of the town as well. Interestingly, you'll see also in the agenda, we are looking at child caring during town meeting. I know that's been an idea that's been bounding about. We're going to try to figure out if it's viable and who can be involved to make that happen regularly. And then the last thing I needed to put this on here because we're trying to make sure that as best we can that people don't get confused with something else that's out there, and there's a lot of force behind it. There's a strong effort in the state of Massachusetts led by some leaders of certain towns to promote what's called remote participation voting. Now, remote participation voting is conceptually something that a lot of people like, and that means they can participate in town meeting without physically attending. There is no law to allow that yet. And software companies are reluctant to actually move forward and create the technology structures because it's a big investment, and they're not going to make that big investment unless it becomes law. However, the information that I'm tied into with some of the leaders from these towns that are promoting this is interesting, but be forewarned, I think I probably will be very vocal. And again, we're not even going to vote on this, but all the promoters of remote participation voting are experts already in electronic voting, meaning they've had those electronic clickers for a while where people can vote privately, and they've worked all the bugs out of them. And so naturally, the next part of the evolution is remote participation voting. This whole discussion, all of this effort for both systems, electronic voting and remote participation voting, is all geared towards preventing town meeting in the current form from dying from lack of participation. all towns are, many towns and cities with town meeting form of government are struggling to maintain and increase the number of participants. And that's the whole point. We certainly don't want to fall below 100 people at any meeting because then we're going to have a crisis. We can't have a meeting with less than 100. But we've been wavering just above 100. I'm very proud that last year was a bang-out year for, I think it was like 160 people. But let's not forget, we got over 5,000 registered voters in Groveland. So 100, 150, 200 people voting, I don't know. Is that a true representation? 100 years from now, if town meeting doesn't exist because these technologies or nothing else works, we'd have to reform our government and some kind of representative government. I don't want that I don't want to see that in my lifetime. So, any questions or comments? And again, thank you for this ability to present to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple.
Sure.
You said you have had about 100 responses to the survey?
Don't quote me, Ed. I think it was 130, 140. That was a month ago.
To me, that's not enough.
I agree.
It's way too low. Look at the survey that was done on the trash and recycling. And they got a tremendous response. So somehow the committee's got to work to get that out to as many people as possible. Basically, what you're talking about is about the amount of people that were at the town meeting last year. So somehow that's got to get out, whether you need the money to mail it to everybody's house, combine it with a tax bill or something of that nature without putting it over the limit on the mailing, but that needs to go to more people. And then you brought up about remote participation. That shouldn't even be talked about by the committee. That wasn't one of the charges. The charge was for electronic voting and no mention of remote participation, so that shouldn't even be talked about by the committee.
Well, if you'll allow, the reason we have it is just strictly for information, so that people understand the difference. Because when I've run to people at Demoulas, for example, they say, "Oh, I can't wait to be able to, participate in a town meeting in my pajamas next year." I said, "No, that's not what we're talking about. Electronic voting, remote participation, people are getting confused. So we're just trying to put some education out there, not that it is anything that we're thinking about as a policy initiative, because it's not part of the charge, correct? Absolutely. Just information if we can.
And not only that, but it's not allowed by, until it's passed by the legislature.
Yeah, it's not even law yet.
And that may be quite a bit down the road.
You're right, I
And
agree.
So obviously, if it's not passed by the legislature, so far, there's no municipalities that do the remote participation, so.
So can I ask you a question? And just, gut feeling, you've been in town a long time and you've seen the ebbs and flows and how decisions are made. What do you think, what's your gut feeling say, and this is a question for all of you, what should be our goal for how many people should participate in that survey? I mean, are we going to be comfortable at 200? Should we try for 3? I mean, because that could also drive the decision that we may not want to put together a report until we have enough people that we can base a policy on. I'm looking for advice from you.
I would be shooting for something 400 plus.
Okay.
What are they, like 5,000 to 6,000?
Yeah,
registered
like
voters?
5,700, I think the number was.
That, to me, and maybe even 400 is too low. But somehow, you gotta get it out, the information out. And I think that maybe mailing to each individual household is probably the way to go.
If I'm guessing the money would be in the budget for that. I believe the money for an electronic voting device is in the budget if we wanted to implement it for the current fiscal year.
Well, the thing of it is that.
But it is
could be combined
expensive.
could be combined with other things that are done, mailing. How about through the electric company? They send out the bills once a month. Did you contact them and see if they could do a mass mailing with their bills?
No, but I will.
That's a thought. The tax bills, to see if that would put it over the weight where it would be take additional postage.
I think the word weight is very important. I'm very concerned about presenting policy and, directives with an insufficient number of people. So I think 400 is a good goal.
Contact the electric company, contact the tax collector's office about the tax bills. There's a lot of bills that go out, and I'm sure that it could be added with something that wouldn't put it over the postage.
Yeah, we're looking, we definitely have printed copies and distributing them physically. We've done that. We're, of course, using the official Facebook page of the web, of the town. We are using the website, but, we've got to try to get more people involved, and that's true. And I'd hate to have we don't want to be a committee where we end up, creating an additional cost to complete our charge. I would be more apt to say we can't complete our charge because we don't have the sufficient number. Can you renew our charge for another year until we get the numbers? I'm just, I'm just thinking out loud. This is not, I'm not representing my committee. I'm just thinking out loud but that is a problem. I'd like to get to the number you say. I think it's reasonable. Stephen, did you have a thought?
No, I was going to say two things, actually. I mean, I think it's great, all the work that you're putting into this to go through both the electronic voting and the what is the right time of week, especially around the electronic voting. I know there's a lot of complexity there, so helping folks to understand, what that looks like and how it can be safely implemented is something that's, I think, is really important. You asked the question around, what should you be looking for in terms of number of responses and things like that.
Right.
And in my mind, and again, I think there's lots of ways that we can get there, whether it's, leveraging something like electric bills or tax bills, but I'd really like to see, us basing it off of somewhere around 10% of registered voters. Like, that would be my bare minimum.
So 500-ish.
Yeah, I really think to get a representative view, that's probably where you need to be.
I'll take that back to committee and let me just see if it's on the agenda. Review results of townwide meeting survey. That's going to incorporate, well, how many do we have? Well, I can take to them the message that the board is suggesting to us that we should be basing policy decisions on a higher number of around 500 or so, 10% of.
I don't want to speak for the whole board, but
Right, okay.
That's what I think would be
Yeah.
a good representative number.
Fair enough.
Kathy?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. One is on the issue of surveys, having done that kind of work in a professional capacity and then also watched it through the trash thing. I think the reason we got such a big response is because of the trash cart size, let's be honest. That was a big hot button issue. And we also got duplicates. So I think the problem with the survey and the way we've done it in the town, it's nice to do surveys the way we do them, but we have to remember that they're not completely indicative of the actual statistical element in our town. It just indicates trends. So I guess the question is, what is it that we really absolutely need to know from a survey? If the big question is whether people want to meet on a Monday night or a Saturday morning, right? That would be a bylaw change, right? Would a non-binding ballot question do the same? Right?
That's a great idea, too.
I mean, a non-binding ballot question, people get out to vote, so there's our voters. And if people know that that's going to be there, then maybe more people will vote. I think that what I've been seeing is kind of an upward trend in our attendance to town meeting. We did go through a tougher time, especially coming out of the pandemic, but even before that, we had a period of time when we were on the phones and on our cells trying to get people. So I feel like last town meeting in particular, and before that, we've been getting to that 100 mark a lot easier. And then we have to think about, what is the purpose of town meeting? Is it to get a certain percentage of registered voters in one room? Not really. I mean, not that I understand it to be. It is our form of pure democracy, one person, one voice, one vote. Show up if it's something that you see that you want to vote on. Otherwise, there's no mandate that you have to go to the town meeting. And people understand that the town meeting can only spend X amount of money. So some people will opt to stay home and deal with anything that's on the ballot in terms of their taxes. If their biggest concern is their tax bill, they may say, I believe that 100 of my friends and neighbors can make those decisions well enough for me. I mean, people may feel that way, right? It's supposed to be representative of the town, and it's supposed to give every registered voter in town the opportunity to show up, say what you think, and make your vote count, right? And towards that end, over the years, we have done child activities in the past through the PTA and other things. So sure, that would be good to try and engage that again, no matter what day or time you do with the town meeting on. I think the only concern would be, to make sure that we keep that town meeting running smoothly, because if you have school-age children out at a night, certainly the parents aren't going to want them out, I would hazard a guess, past 8:30, 9 o'clock. I know Steve is a resident parent expert on the board now. What say you, Steve? What's the time?
I would say if I could get my kids into bed between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, that would be amazing.
Okay, so there would be the window for child activity. And then I'd also suggest, Joe, we're both parents, and we went through those younger child years, that after a couple of hours of any activity, we've kind of hit the end of that, right? I mean, so, yeah, a little bit of childcare could be helpful, but I think we can't count on that if a town meeting is going to go 3 or more hours, which I hope it wouldn't. But the goal would then be to try to keep the town meeting organized and efficient enough to be within an hour and a half, 2-hour window. That's what we're thinking about, right? If you want to dovetail it with some kind of child activity, you have to keep the time frame in mind for how long can you keep children occupied in games and arts and crafts and things. So we've done that, and it did help some parents out to be able to bring their children and check on them. So I support that idea to bring that back. We've had bake sales at town meetings in the past. We've opened it up for scouts and other organizations to be there to encourage membership and to explain what they do, so we could open it up for that too. Just if the kids have to be there manning a table for scouts, usually the parents are not somewhere not far behind. So that, there's a lot of creative ways to just increase the numbers.
Yeah, January 28th is not on the agenda, but at a previous meeting, we pretty much are probably going to form a plan with the Council on Aging and use, create a shuttle service for senior citizens and pick them up.
Right, and that too was done
Again,
in the
using
past.
existing resources of the town.
Correct, yeah, in the past that was
Cost a little bit of
done.
gas, but other than that,
Right.
we should be okay.
That was done in the past, but we
Yeah.
just stopped doing it for some, there's things we did, and then they just fell by the wayside because whoever organized it moved on, or people changed jobs here and things like that. So all of those are great ideas, and then, you get back to, well, when do people want this town meeting to be? You get one group that can go on a Saturday morning, another group that says their kids have activities all Saturday. They can't go on a Saturday morning. So
Yeah, it's a little bit, I can tell you, if we wanted
It's
to,
tough.
we did do some interpretation. If you do watch the meeting, we interpreted some results with existing numbers, and
Yep.
clearly there seems to be, the trend is friendly towards an electronic device. The trend for a Saturday meeting is not very friendly. It's very kind of rather conflicted. But the other thing, Rebecca and I worked really well together. It was my first rodeo as town moderator. And we did an education program prior, and we also, it's not just electronic devices and babysitting and shuttle services, it's also the overall experience. One of the significant changes that we made this year is that we presented without reading, the information on a big screen. And so, we also, as a town moderator, I want to make it more enticing, more interesting, more comfortable. God forbid we should use the word fun, but that's what's going to raise numbers too. It's not like, oh my God, here comes that meeting. It's boring, it's hard, it's conflicted. We want it to be more pleasant. And there's no survey for that. That's just us working together as a team, all of us, to make the town meeting more interesting, more enticing, more comfortable, more exciting. And that's a long-term goal of mine, and I think all of us in town. So that's not part of our charge, but behind what we're doing is some of that as well. So, but I didn't bring a pencil, but I think the survey numbers, maybe looking at tax bills, and maybe a non-binding
I could, yeah.
vote is a great idea.
Another thing that
you.
we used to do is to get well in advance of the annual town meeting, ask all the appointed town boards and committees to please do not schedule a meeting on that evening, because
Oh, good.
often there's all these meetings.
Yeah.
There was also a reach out to the sports that were playing at that point, if at all possible, could you not have a practice? I mean, I think sometimes the games, it's harder to deal with that because the schedule gets set, but perhaps have the practices end before town meeting time, so town boards and committees, including the Electric Commission, the Water and Sewer Commission. We have a lot of people on appointed town boards and committees that I have not seen at our town meeting, and they are part of our town government, so it would be really nice to bring them back into the fold. I think town meeting is always interesting. Healthy debate is always part of it. It shouldn't be unpleasant for anybody to be able to voice their opinion, and that's kind of your job as the moderator, make sure that they can be heard, whether they're the majority or the minority. I mean, you should feel free to speak your mind. If you don't understand something, ask. If you don't agree with something, it's okay to say that. That's what you're there for. People need to hear people who don't agree. That's okay. We don't all have to be on the same page all the same time. We go there to vote and make a decision. So you realize, you raise your hand, and sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it don't. That's town meeting. But it is supposed to be representative of the town. So keeping a nice little buffer above the 100, I think, is a good idea. I just don't feel like we should expect 400 people in the room like we did with a Pentucket building override and things like that. That will happen naturally when there's something really big. But in between that, the normal business of the town, it is a little boring, but it is necessary. So, getting people in there and getting it running quickly and having it run efficiently, I think, I like the new format that our town administrator has implemented. I think it makes it very easy to follow. There's lots of information provided as backup to the information that's put on the town meeting floor, but to some degree, we don't need to go through the minutia anymore because we have a town administrator and staff in this whole building going through all these budgets, combing through them. Then we have a group of citizens on the financial board going through this, combing through this. And then we have the select board members going through this, combing for this. So what do we want from the town meeting? We want to know overall, this is the balanced budget, this is what it will do for you. What are your questions? They shouldn't have to do what takes all these other groups months to do in just a matter of hours. So I think the more efficient warrant is a good idea.
Great.
Because it allows people to make a vote and be heard.
I'll take your
Yeah.
recommendations to the committee, and I'll ask Rebecca for some time to come back in February,
Right.
which will be sometime between January and completing the charge, or maybe asking for the charge to continue because we can't close it.
Right, but ultimately, I guess the question that I have is, what problem, I know you have a charge, but in the interest of saving time on doing a lot of extra work that maybe doesn't, or needs to be done, or doesn't need to be done, what is the problem that we're trying to address? Is there a problem? We got well over 100 at the last town meeting. So if we continue with signage and what's being done on the town website and the Facebook page, and
Well, the preceding 3 years, we struggled. We were all on cell phones.
yes.
So
but
it's the
as I
slip,
said,
it's the
we have-
slipping back that we're concerned about.
Correct, I understand that. So that's the problem we're worried about, but it's,
You know, we
Based
did have
on-
by the way, if you'll excuse me, we didn't have an override request, but we had a couple of big tickets of probably, I mean, the water treatment facility, $45 million ticket. I think, I sense that that drew some people. So it's nice to be well over 100. I just hope that we can go on a trend where that is stable and increasing, not, we don't slip back to under 100.
Correct.
We're frantically calling people
right, but
6:35
I
to come to the
believe-
meeting.
I don't know, you can discover more, I guess, when you sit down. My understanding when we were going through the advertisements and the getting the word out, the town administrator and staff here was really pushing information out. There were the roundtable discussions that you participated in. There was a lot of information that was dispensed in advance of the town meeting, a lot of discussion of big issues like the water treatment in advance of the town meeting, which I think allowed the town meeting to be more efficient. Sometimes when you see that people don't have any questions, it doesn't mean they're totally happy with having to pay a higher water bill, but they understand what that is addressing, that there's a toxin or a poison or whatever you want to call it, not a poison, it's a thing in our water that needs to be reduced, and the only way to do it is through this water treatment plant that we don't have. So I just think let's maybe push more on asking the town boards and committees and some of these softer approaches. The signage, just town meeting tonight signages around town, and signs that can be used over and over again, might helpful too. Town meeting Monday night, put them all out. So, because everything costs money, everything takes time, and I think I value what your committee is doing. I think it's really cool. And I'd like to see them just kind of start to push their way to where they want to be, what they think is going to work. And they may need another year. Maybe you need to do some of these soft approaches, pushing it through and see what happens.
Yep.
Until we do something, sometimes we don't know. Time will tell, let the pages turn and we'll see.
Yeah, we don't want to make a mistake and provide you with a recommendation, and then we implement something and people don't like it. Just for
Right.
the record, for people that are watching this, they might not know, electronic voting is a small handheld device that allows you to click a clicker to say yes or no or abstain from a vote. It gets automatically and immediately tabulated, it gets presented on a screen, and the best thing about it is it's private. So people don't know how you vote, just the way we normally vote. And some people might say, yeah, I'll go to a meeting if I don't have to show my neighbor how I vote, something that might not make him happy, for example.
Yeah.
So that's the concept. But, again, kudos to Rebecca and Annie, who really reformulated how that town meeting felt and looked like. And I think we're going to be looking forward to more improvements. So I'm looking forward.
Right, no, I think you're on a good path.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
like that people are thinking and asking these questions, and I just think sometimes we have to approach it kind of common sense a little bit with some small initiatives, and then see if that increases it. Because we appoint a lot of people to boards and committees. And I know I don't see all of them at town meeting, because I know a lot of the faces, so I look to see if people are here. And I just think that it would be great to not have that evening be a non-meeting night for our town boards and committees.
So just so you know, I'm planning to meet with Rebecca probably in late February, and then I'll probably launch just a similar series of so-called roundtable discussion, kind of what we did last year, just get the information out there, get people educated about what the issues are, and, entice them to come to the meeting and participate. So I think that's a
Great.
good thing. But I value all of you. I value this board as our partners in this important work, and I appreciate it. And I will take your really good, sage advice back to the committee. It will definitely direct us, so thank you.
I have one more comment.
Sure.
The survey, you said about 140, so that seems, just echoing what Ed had said, that's like the number of people roughly that
Yeah.
maybe come to town meeting are the ones that are always engaged,
Yeah.
right? It's if if you see the names, it's the usual suspects,
Yeah.
right?
That's okay. And thank
so-
goodness we have those.
Right, exactly. But when we talk the comparison with the trash, right, there was something that affected people. I think part of the struggle we have is people don't realize the decisions made at town meeting affect them too. But just not as it's not so, it's going to affect my weekly trash, my weekly habits, instead of the big picture. So I think
Sure.
you continuing that education is going to be key. There's a lot of new residents that are from cities and places that know, what is town meeting? What is all this? So I think the more education you give as well, too, people will be more interested, right, and maybe would participate in the survey. They may not know what that survey is even for. They may not even understand it. I know that puts you in a bit of a chicken and the egg kind of thing, but it almost seems like, just based on the numbers, it could just be the lack of really understanding the power that people have, our residents have at town meeting.
Yeah. I think I'll end by saying we're going to do quality work
Yeah.
for you. We're here to serve you, the board. You've given us a charge. We're going to do quality work. And that also means if we can't finish it this year, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to just drive a deadline. We got to have a report by, such and such, and it's not quality.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I got another question, Joe.
Sure.
Has your committee looked at the data from other communities as far as the percentage of registered voters that go to town meeting? Looking also at, is the town meeting on a weeknight, a Saturday, or electronic voting? Does it make a difference? Have you looked at that yet?
Yes, we are looking at data.
What are those results showing?
It's kind of a mixed bag. Electronic voting seems to be a lot easier than Saturday meetings. Electronic voting is more amenable for people to change. Saturday meetings is a hit or miss. We've had communities that have tried Saturday and have to go back to during the week.
What percentage of voters are some of these communities getting?
I don't know that offhand. I don't have that data with.
That should be easy to find out.
It will be, absolutely. It's going to be part of our report. Thank you, yeah. It's part of the data that we've collected as well. We looked at other towns, like, why reinvent the wheel? What other people are doing? Where did they succeed and where did they fail? My biggest fear keeps me up at night. We make a recommendation to something that doesn't work. People don't come to the meeting because they don't want the clickers. People don't show up on Saturdays, despite what the data told us, because they can't fit it into their schedule. I don't want to create a crisis. So we're really careful about what we're going to recommend because it's your decision, and then our heads will roll if it doesn't work.
Through the chair, could I just, that reminded me of a question I had when you first began speaking, is that, so you're saying that the select board can vote to implement the voting without the vote of a town meeting? The town meeting doesn't have to vote to accept this?
I haven't looked into that. I would need to verify myself.
Okay, because that would be important. I'd like to see the Mass General Law on that.
I believe that would be the case. I could be wrong, and I'll
I know we
correct myself.
had to vote one time when we wanted to do a ballot vote, a secret ballot vote. We had to vote out the town meeting to do that, but that might have been because it was a one-time event. But I would like to know where the authority rests, because I wouldn't want to take away from the authority of the town meeting to vote the way they choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into that again, but I believe would be correct, that it's your decision, but I'll verify that.
Yeah, it might be like through our town attorney, because it might have to do, every town's kind of got certain nuance.
Yeah, the bylaw, I believe.
Some things are blanket Mass General laws, and some things are particular to different towns.
Yeah, I just thought about it when Patrick had told me, basically the decision, I believe, resides with the town moderator, but I would never proceed that way. I would ask you to help me, make the decision, at least by consent, so. Well, I'll get that cleared up. I'll get that,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
important.
that'd be good to know.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
important. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks,
You can
Joe.
have a piece of candy.
And there's candy here by Kathy
You get your
Castronelis.
candy, you get your reward. Everybody who speaks tonight gets
Right, there
candy.
you go. All right, so next up, we have a community garden project update. This is for Phase 1 design presentation for the Pines Recreation Area, and requested to submit a Phase 2 application for a water connection on town property. And we have Jan Dempsey presenting for us.
Thank you so much for having me on the agenda tonight. I really appreciate it. Basically, I'm seeking permission, excuse me, to use town land to continue the CPA Community Garden Project into Phase 2. Phase 2 would extend the water supply to the site as the next step in establishing a community garden where the old dog park currently exists in the Pines Recreation Area. Excuse me. This is a background to the project. In 2024, a CPA article was voted at town meeting enabling the design phase of the community garden project. The design phase was successfully completed in July 2025. The resulting 24-page report includes a soil sample report and other documents and gives a step-by-step guide to establishing the garden. The site can potentially accommodate 18 raised beds for individuals or families, as well as common areas and space for natural plantings and beautification. The next step in the process is to pursue a second CPA grant to extend the water supply to the garden area and to also pursue other grants to help with the project's completion. I really appreciate the Select Board's time in considering allowing the community garden project to continue on the site of the old dog park at the Pines. And I'm certainly available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions, Ed?
Not yet.
Okay. Steve?
I have just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So the first question is, I mean, I think the community garden is a great idea. I'm just curious, do we have a sense of, in a season, how much water might be used?
I don't know the gallons. I mean, it would depend on the weather, really, you know. If you have a wet year, you won't use anything. If you have a dry year, you would use more. But I honestly don't know for sure what that would be. I can look into that for you.
Just kind of curious just because that may equate to cost in terms of paying for the water, right? So just trying to understand what that operational cost looks like, maybe year over year.
Basically, only hand watering would be allowed, and the water would be on a timer. It would not be able to be used at night, you know, so nothing could be left running, that type of thing.
That was actually one of my other questions, was whether there would be some sort of automatic shut off or something like that so that it didn't get left on. And then I guess the only other question I had, just given the nature of this project, have you looked into or considered incorporating things like rain barrels or anything like that into the watering strategy?
Certainly can be a part of it.
Okay.
There is room for rain barrels there.
Okay.
You don't get as much water collected if it's not off of a roof,
Sure.
you know, but it certainly could be part of the strategy.
Okay.
And basically, you know, people will be encouraged to water conservatively, for sure, you know what I mean? And most gardeners do that anyway, because, you know, they're used to that type of restriction. So, you know, you might put some dried grass around your plants as extra mulch, that type of thing, just to kind of conserve moisture.
Yeah, I just think if there's anything we can do to offset the water usage, if rain barrels helped with that, every little bit counts, right? So I think
That's a great idea.
that's all I had for questions. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I echo Steve with the rain barrels, and then you said the roof thing, and I thought, that's why my rain barrel fills up so well, because the roof comes right down onto it. So we need to build a roof there, obviously. No, just kidding.
That'll block the sun, Kathy, and we'll have another problem.
Okay, we'll have to have a roof that we can remove. Okay, only when it rains. No, I'm just kidding. I love the idea. The thing that concerned me initially was I was not aware that the fenced-in dog park was still being used, since we've opened the new dog park that required the permit. So if it's unhealthy,
should the Board of Health go down, take a look at it, and make a decision about locking that area up? I mean, if people are bringing animals in and the animals are, leaving behind feces and all, that's unhealthy for everybody concerned. And we do have a beautiful dog park right there, so I don't understand why they would go down there.
If the board would like, we can work to remove the gate so that it's no longer accessible for people to cage in a dog in that particular area. We can try and lock the gate if that's something that the board would like to do. It really is up to the select board.
Okay.
How they'd like to use their property.
Right.
So I know that the design plan takes into consideration the existing site as it is. So whether or not you restrict use of that site, we can try with signage, but I'm not positive that that's going to be successful, and I do think that you're going to have a lot of enforcement issues with owners currently using that area for a smaller dog park when they do not want to use a larger park.
But there is a small dog park, and whenever I go, there's no dog in it. Mine's the only dog. She's so small. But again, my question is it unsanitary? Is it an unsanitary situation down at that fenced-in run? I don't get down there, so I wouldn't know.
Sanitary in the sense of what? I mean,
Animal waste being left out there to just run out, when it
technically,
rains.
you're supposed to pick up after your animal, so you're supposed to be picking up the waste, and there are fines, and we do have a bylaw that supports picking up the waste when, in fact, we are able to catch somebody who does that. But even at the dog park today, you're not able to just let your dog go to the bathroom and not pick up after the dog.
Right, but we have one dog park now, or are we still running 2 dog parks? That's
We're
what I'm
not
asking.
running anything. If the select board would like to put up signage and
Okay, then we're
officially
closing this.
decommission the park, but it's being used by dog owners for the same purpose as it was originally.
Okay.
So the select board needs to determine exactly what it wants to do with this property.
So can we just add that to the next agenda to vote on closing?
Yeah, I think we have a beautiful dog park.
Because we are, I think the other issue that concerns me around that is we do have the bark pass, right? And so people are paying to use the actual dog park. If people are getting around that by using the old one, I'm not sure that that's equitable to the people that are actually paying.
Right.
Yeah, and then the only other thing is just that I would prefer to have the highway superintendent weigh in on the proposal to connect into any of the infrastructure that we have down at the Pines.
Sure.
You mean the water connection?
Correct.
Yeah, because there's a well down there,
It's
right? But it's
well
like,
water that they're looking to use, so they would have some they do have some issues with the well that's currently down there and whether or not it's functioning correctly and the irrigation system down there, and it's only on the utility field, but that also feeds our infrastructure up here, so there's a lot of different things that happen with the actual mechanics of everything, so
Yeah.
I would like the highway superintendent to be able to confirm whether or not our system is capable of allowing for this connection and whether he agrees with the proposed path.
okay.
Okay. So do we just continue this discussion? This was just awareness for tonight? Okay.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, though, if the project goes forward, the plan in our original design phase was to close the park off to dogs like maybe a month or 2 months before construction.
Right.
I really wouldn't worry too much about it being contaminated, because we'd be putting in raised beds anyway.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that was considered in our
Right.
original thing as closing it off, prior to construction.
Right. I just was unaware that it was still being used. And as Steve pointed out, we have a permit system for the regular dog park, which ensures that the dogs have all their shots and everything, because you have to fill out your veterinary information. Yeah, so I just wasn't, I was totally unaware that there was any use of that as a dog park any longer. Thank you for bringing it up to me. I didn't know.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jan.
I got
Okay.
a couple questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
As I'm looking at this paperwork here, the total cost of the project, $28,940.
What are you looking at, the
Old
original
dog park
report?
conversion cost estimate, page
Yeah.
5.
Okay,
So total cost, 28,940,
Yes.
but you're requesting 12,800 from CPA funds. Where's the rest of it coming from?
This 28,000 was total cost of doing the entire project.
It,
Oh, the
So but you're requesting,
Phase 2,
am I reading it correctly? You're looking for 12,800 from
Yes.
CPA?
yes, that's to do two things. One might not be necessary, but it's to do the determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission. And we might have to do a notice of intent. If we don't end up having to do that, then it's just to connect to the water supply, which is like $3,500. So that's just, because we really can't, this project really can't go forward without water. We can't, do plantings, we can't do that without the water. So this is like phase 2 of getting the water connected. And then we hope to get grant money to complete the project.
Well, you have here at the top, it says possible offsets could equal 20,000. But if you take the first 6 items that are listed, which you couldn't use volunteer labor for the first 6 items that you have listed here, that's not too far off from the 12,000. And at 28, my math is correct, at 28,940, you're talking, there's 18 raised gardens. That's $1,500 a raised garden.
I think that what you need to look also at what is included in this and why there's an offset. For example, one of the items on the list is 20 yards of wood chips and mulch delivered. And we've already been told by the town that there's tons of wood chips that we would be able to get for free. So that's why there's an offset on that one. The same with compost. We may be able to use some of the compost from the town yard to put in the bottom of the beds. Again, that would not cost that amount if we had the offset. There's another line item with native shrubs. Again, we might be able to get donations from local nurseries for some of the native shrubs. So the goal is definitely to do all that the project can do to get grants and to also do volunteer labor, et cetera, to keep the costs down. However, this particular part of the project is infrastructure, which I felt was appropriate for a CPA application.
Okay.
Does that
That's
make
all I
more
got.
sense?
Thank you.
Okay. We all set?
We're all set?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have authorization to sign a new liquor license for Groveland Fairways with the change of manager.
Correct. So the board had a public hearing, and you already voted to approve, but as you'll see in the packet, and as noted in the memo, that we did not receive the ABCC confirmation. We have since received it, so it's just a vote of approval. I mean, not of approval, but vote for signature,
Okay.
So a vote to allow the
to
chairperson.
authorize the actual license
Okay,
itself.
so, and it's for the Wedgewood beverage?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to authorize the chairperson of the select board to sign the liquor license for the Wedgewood Beverage Incorporated at Fairways by Wedgewood Weddings, 156 Main Street, Groveland, Massachusetts, 01834.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. All right, next we have vote to approve and sign the following liquor license renewals. This is a list I will read out loud. We have Route 97 Liquors at 908D Salem Street, package store, all alcohol. Groveland Liquors, 1 Washington Street, package store, all alcohol. Jerry's Variety, 15 Elm Park, package store, all alcohol. Near Odds Inc., 192 Main Street, package store, all alcohol. Nichols Village, 1 Nichols Way, club license. Pub 97, 935 Salem Street, restaurant license. Tea Garden, 904 Salem Street, restaurant license. Takata Corona, 8 Elm Park, restaurant license. Groveland Fairways by Wedgwood Weddings, 156 Main Street, general on-premise license. And Merry Mart LLC, 931 Salem Street, package store, beer and wine. Could I get a motion to approve?
I'll move for passage.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yeah.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Next, we have to vote to approve and sign the Class 2 used car license renewals. This list is CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales, Inc., 737 Salem Street, no more than 20 vehicles. Greenwood Auto Body, Richard Allen Greenwood, 863 Salem Street, no more than 10 vehicles. Groveland Auto Repair and Sales, Inc., 931 Salem Street, no more than 10 vehicles. And Route 97 Motors LLC, 923 Salem Street, no more than 32 vehicles.
Madam Chair, if I could, the memo from Annie Schindler's said the Greenwood Auto Repair Sales has not submitted a renewal application.
Okay.
Is that still the case, as far as we know?
That's correct. So we would recommend that the board vote be contingent upon receipt of all required paperwork, so that when they do submit the information, we are able to provide them our license on that date.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion for approval contingent on the receipt of all required paperwork or? Paperwork, okay.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Nothing? All right. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Next, I have to vote to approve and sign the following common vitular license renewals. This vote is to be contingent upon receipt of all required paperwork. This list includes Nichols Village, 1 Nichols Way, Carboni Pub 97 LLC, doing business as Pub 97, 935 Salem Street, J&S Restaurant Corporation, doing business as Tea Garden Restaurant at 904 Salem Street, Z Gold Food and Beverage Services LLC, doing business as Groveland Fairways by Wedgwood Weddings, 156 Main Street, Ultimate Perk Coffee Company Incorporated, 921 Salem Street, Nextdine LLC, doing business as Nextdine at Chesterton Cafe, 860 Salem Street, Riverside Pizza, Zera Merzai, sorry if I said the name wrong, 180 Main Street, Pentucket Regional School District, 253 Main Street, Conservation Commission, doing business as VZ Memorial Park, 201 Washington Street, Pizza Grove LLC, 990 Salem Street, Jeff and Maria's Ice Cream and Food, 928 Salem Street, and Takata Corona at 8 Elm Park.
I'll make a motion for approval contingent on the receipt of all the required paperwork. And a second note that on the Jeff and Maria's ice cream, if I remember, was it last year or was it the year before? We had difficulty with the contact, and then they wanted to open, and we hadn't done what we needed to do. So do we have a good contact for them?
Yes, we do. Technically, they don't open their operation until later in the season, since it's an ice cream
Yes.
type of
Yeah.
facility. So
Right.
they usually don't renew on a timely manner. So again, what we end up doing is we try and give them a little bit of the leeway with contingent upon the paperwork, so that they don't get that license until they actually submit, but we don't have to tell them, hey, you can't open because the select board's not meeting for another 2 weeks.
Correct.
So they can continue to do business in a timely manner, and we can kind of facilitate that on our end.
Okay, so this will make it work.
Exactly.
Oh, perfect. That's my only question.
We should update the address, Pizza Grove. It's not 990, it's 908
Oh, okay.
Salem Street. I think that it's correctly on the license, but on the agenda here,
That's
the
correct.
address is
Okay,
And that will be fixed for future agendas.
great.
Second it.
All right. All in favor?
Yep.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Next on our agenda is the National Grid 2026 Yearly Operations Plan notification. I believe this was part of our correspondence from the December 8th meeting, and it was requested to add tonight's agenda.
Right. So,
Page 41.
41.
PDF, yep.
So this is basically just them telling us that they are executing their plan, right? There's not really much, we
Well,
don't
we
have
are-
any control
Well,
over that or any, I mean, that's land that they basically own or have a right of way to.
So my question at the last meeting was, are they going to be spraying? And if so, are the residents that live in proximity to where this is happening going to be notified in advance of the spraying? Not like when it's happening, but in advance in case there's any health concerns in those households. There are homes that border up on the right-of-ways.
So I know in their paperwork, they say that they don't broadcast spray, that it's targeted spraying, but I don't know, I didn't see anything in there about notification requirements specifically.
Yeah, I did not receive much information, to be honest with you. I had approached our liaison and just stated that the select board had a couple of questions and would like additional information. And it would be helpful to have somebody present at their next meeting. And that person just sent me over this email and said, you can share with them this information. So I don't have the answer to your questions. I only have the same material that you have before you.
Well, can we request the dates and locations where they're going to do this vegetation management? Because then we can certainly put it on our website. So people that use that right away for walking purposes or other purposes will know when it's being done.
If that's what the board would like, I can make this request.
What do you think? Is that?
Yeah, I do, and the reason I say that is they do, in that memo that they sent, there's a link that takes you to a page that lists out all the yearly operating plans and notices, and like Haverhill's listed on there, but Groveland is not, so we can't even see all of the details. So either, I would say they publish that full packet that they have for the other cities and towns, or they send us more information.
I'm sorry. My son knows how to call, right, in every meeting. Does he target it? It's a planned activity, I think. And I forgot to turn it off. So I would think it'd be, I mean, if it's not too difficult for them to let us know when they're doing these activities, I don't know whether other towns do provide notice, but
Right.
if it's not that difficult for them to provide that.
Yeah, I don't understand why we're not in that published plan that they have online.
Oh, about when they're going to do it?
Yeah.
So they don't know. So that's going to give us another memo.
Can certainly make the request.
We could certainly get another memo from them, right? See if we have a link to another schedule. Yeah, I just think it would be, they must have a schedule.
So I'll ask him about the schedule and whether or not we can be notified, and then I'll also ask him about the link that's included in the memo and ask why Groveland is not included.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent. Ed, did you have any comments on this?
No.
Okay, great. Next thing we have up are communications and community engagement report. This is report number 1.
Yes, so this report is the first of its kind, and something that the board had requested as part of their goals for fiscal year 2026. So I did my best in trying to assemble as much information as I could from our social media insight pages, in addition to our new website and our new website analytic page. So some of the data is just taken right from there about the percentages of people who are visiting the website or visiting the social media pages. Overall, I think that the data shows that we are heading in the right direction. We are using the platforms effectively. I thought it was also interesting that some of our top performing posts, at least on Instagram, was in regards to the Quarry apartment postings, which reached 908 views. And then on Facebook, one of our far-reaching posts was about the North Shore Regional 911. So that was also interesting. In regards to the website, it looks like a lot of people who are visiting are actually visiting directly to find information, or they are using the Google search bar and getting redirected to our website, which I also thought was promising. I also, as part of, it wasn't necessarily considered as part of your original engagement, but I also thought it was an interesting thing to start tracking is how people are interacting with the employees here at Town Hall and how they're utilizing these services. Are they coming in to get information? Are they emailing us? Are they calling us? And what information is specifically of interest to them? And where are they not finding it? Or could they find it online? Or can we make it a more streamlined process for folks? So I had reached out to the departments, and some of the departments are already kind of tracking this. The COA is a great example of what they do and how they track their information. They have a kiosk in their office. If, somebody comes and logs in for a program, it's all tracked. If somebody gives a neighbor a call just to check in and say hi, it's all tracked through their My Senior Center app. And I know that the town clerk also has been logging some of her inquiries to her office, marriage license, death certificates, et cetera. And that's something that we kind of do already because we include that information as part of our annual town report. So a lot of the departments were already kind of assembling it. So it was just a different way of trying to track that. So an example of what we hope to include in our next report, you can see from the town clerk who offered to be the guinea pig to kind of show what that kind of could look like so that the board could get a better understanding again about the interactions here at Town Hall and how the residents are interacting with the departments and for what specific issues. So overall, like I said, I think we're trending in the right direction. I think it's really useful data, and I think it will really help us kind of enhance the way that we use these platforms and the way that we present information to folks in town and also beyond. And I'm very excited to hear any feedback or any additional information that you would like me to include in the future or things you would like me not to include in the future. But again, looking back forward to your feedback.
All right, great. Ed, we'll start with you. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Steve?
So I think the data is great. It's awesome that we're getting these numbers. It's really interesting to see some of the website engagement. And then I think including the in-person engagement is great, just to see how folks are utilizing services at Town Hall. On the website analytics, maybe for the next time, it would be interesting to see if, and I don't know if we can track this, but if we can see if there's certain things people are consistently searching for to understand if we should be making that information more prominent on the page or easier to find. And then maybe look at outside of the homepage, what the top pages that are visited are to see if we can figure out anything that we're doing well on those pages that we could incorporate in other places. Those would be my two.
We can definitely do that. The one part that's tricky about that is just the time of year.
Sure.
Because there's a couple of pages that become a lot more popular. Like the highway department in the wintertime for some reason is a lot more popular. And then also the town clerk's office during like the election time. So we can definitely start to do that. It's just interesting to see the trend of the seasonal poll, if you will.
Yeah, that might also be interesting to, again, if you think about making things more prominent based on what people are looking for. If it's always the highway department is more prominent in the winter, maybe that should be easier to access from the homepage during the winter versus town clerk during election season, something like that.
Great.
But I think this is great data.
Kathy?
No, I'm happy to see this. I know, I've been stumbling around on the things too. So I think the more used to going to like the Facebook page to see what's happening or what's going on, and then maybe go to the town webpage when you need to look up something documentary-wise or meeting, is this group meeting tonight? Will help everybody decide, where do you go find this stuff? How do you know if something's happening or not happening? So I like it. I like the fact that we're talking about community engagement, because I think if we talk about it, we make it known that we're interested in it, I'm sure that, we'll hear pros and cons about what we're doing or whether we're doing it well enough. So I think it's great to track it. I think it's a really positive thing for the town to keep an eye on. And towards that same point, I think a community that understands more what's going on in its own town is more inclined to go to a town meeting for a while. If you don't know anything about what's going on in town, why would you bother to go? Sit there and hear about stuff you know nothing about. So community engagement starts with understanding what's going on in your town.
And we would like to, on that note, and to further the conversation that we had when Joe was here, is that we would like to initiate a initiative to send out postcards on town meeting time with a link to the actual warrant. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't, you know, some smaller communities, when I saw a survey that was recently put out, they actually send the entire warrant to each individual household. And that might be a little bit much, especially when sometimes our warrant can be well over 100 pages. But the idea of a postcard I thought was really interesting with a QR code or a link, or to just say, it's available, you can come down to town hall and we'll print you a copy and physically hand it to you, or mail you a copy if that's what you want. But just something to, again, give people more visibility in terms of town meeting and the documents that we have, and that they are available to them in advance of the meeting so that they can do their own due diligence or ask questions in advance that might be helpful to them when they get to town meeting.
Right.
Nice.
Was all this information interesting for you to pick up too?
It was interesting to find, just because the analytics page on the website wasn't as easy as
Yeah.
the social media pages, but, and then, like Steve said, there's so many different things that you can pull from, so it was
Right.
kind of overwhelming to be like, all right, which information should I focus on? Is this relevant? Is this not relevant? So it's gonna take some getting used to on my end, but it was definitely interesting.
Right. Crash course in like marketing, basically, is what you're doing.
YouTube was my friend.
Yes, yes. Actually, that was going to be my question. For YouTube stats, I know like underneath the videos, we can see how many views. Is there anything, and I don't have a YouTube page to know, is there anything behind the scenes that shows you stats? Or is it just too,
I'd have to
Messy.
collaborate with Chris LaCory, the
Okay.
Google manager, to kind
Yeah.
of get that information, because they run that page. I
Okay.
don't necessarily have access to it.
Okay.
But we can see if there is a way to track anything of that nature, so we
Yeah.
can have it included.
okay. I don't know how complex, like I said, I'm not too sure what it looks like behind the scenes, but it'd be interesting to see how many views of these exciting meetings that we have. But this, you know?
The voice, we're all looking in the
You
ceiling
can't-
now.
Okay. All right, so maybe we can get some stats to include with this kind of report.
The great and
Because I
wonderful
think it
Oz.
would be helpful, and again, understanding where people are going. Like, the Facebook thing, I get it. I think a lot of people go there. People are either Facebook or Instagram. Some are a little bit of both, but some people do go to YouTube and watch the meeting. So just to get an idea of where people are at could be interesting. So, yeah, that'd be great if we can get those statistics. This is great. Good baseline, right? Now we know where we are. We see how to move forward from here. So thank you so
100%.
much. Yeah. All right. Next on the agenda, VZ Memorial Park, update on Conservation Commission meeting and legal compliance. So that's with you?
Yes, so I just wanted to update the board that I did attend, as I had stated in my bi-weekly email to the board, that I was going to attend the Conservation Committee meeting on December 10th. I did do that. At that meeting, the board voted to create a subcommittee to review these issues in a little bit more detail. We did have a representative from DCS, which is the Division of Conservation Services, present at the meeting, so that was very helpful. The subcommittee meeting actually had its first meeting on December 16th, and we did invite the representative from DCS to attend. So as you'll see in the memo that's provided to you this evening is an overview of the actual meeting itself. Much of it was kind of focused on getting some feedback from DCS, kind of going over the history of where VZ was since 1995, some of the operations, some of the communications that we had with the Division of Conservation and Recreation, and how we had assumed, compliance due to the management plans being submitted, and having them come out to the site and kind of walk the site and kind of, nodding along, so that we were always of the understanding that we were doing things properly. So they kind of clarified a little bit of that about the breakdown and the umbrella of the Executive Office of Environmental and Energy Affairs, and then there's DCR, which is more concerned with the land aspect, and then there's DCS, which is more concerned with the grant and the land grant and the monies that were given to the town and the use of the property. I believe that Stephanie Bartelt, one of the members of the subcommittee, is going to have a tour with the woman from DCS to kind of go over the site and give her firsthand knowledge of what we have here in Groveland. So overall, I thought it was a productive meeting. DCS, did send a follow-up email in regards to some of the things brought forward. And again, as part of that memo, you see those highlighted. So they wanted to clearly define the passive recreation, consistency with prior correspondence. That was something that they had brought forward. There was some correspondence shared back in 2000 and then again in 2001 in regards to the actual uses allowed at the property. They talked a little bit about the fee-based and facility uses, making sure that, signage is clear, availability of parking, and, equitable fees and access for residents and non-residents. And then they talked a little bit about the residential use and leases, stating that there was correspondence that alluded to the fact that a caretaker unit might be something that they would consider in order to deter vandalism and to promote the upkeep of the property. But the vision of the property was never to have actual residential units or 3 residential units. So again, it sounds like they would be amenable to having a further conversation about a potential caretaker's unit and preserving one of those residential properties that we have at the park, but it did not seem that they were necessarily in favor of exceeding that. That being said, the conversation is still very new. It wasn't anything that was set in stone. Nobody said, this is going to happen, this is what we're doing. I think that it's something that a lot of us are treading carefully. A lot of past history has been, just operating and doing the best that we can and operating with what we thought was in the confines of what the grant was for, the purpose was for. And now finding out little things that maybe DCS would not necessarily allow has caused us to kind of pause and rethink about what we're doing and whether or not we can, be compliant, and how we can bring current operations into compliance, and whether or not those operations could potentially stay, or do they have to change? So it really is kind of an ongoing conversation, and I'm very positive that I believe that everybody is willing and wants to find a resolution that's in the best interest of the town and the property. So I think that as time goes on, I'll have more updates for you, but unfortunately, again, since it's still kind of new in the due diligence phase, I don't really have too much to share, other than the fact that we're kind of trying to look through historic documents, see exactly what's relevant, see what's been determined so far, and kind of get a better understanding from DCS if there's a hard, we will not allow this, or you cannot do this. And then if that's the case, well, then if we can't do this, can we do this? Like, what can we do to continue to make the property self-sustaining, and what uses can we be creative with in order to do the same? There has been conversations about potentially removing portions of the site from Article 97, which protects that under the grant that we received through the land grant, which was a self-help grant, if you hear that terminology used. So that's something that we can talk to the state about as well. There'll probably be a monetary implication, because we probably will need to give the state back some money that they gave us for the purchase of the property, but we're not necessarily looking to exclude the whole property. We want to keep a lot of the property in Article 97. We want to preserve and to keep everything the way it is, but it's the buildings that make things more difficult, because how do they expect us to conform with the passive recreation when you have buildings that you need to maintain and revenue that you need to generate in order to maintain those buildings? So there's kind of got to be a clear definition as to what we can do and what we can't do, so that we can figure out what we need to do as a town, because if they're not going to allow us to continue some of those uses, then we really need to figure out how we can make sure that we can keep the property running, or if there's another idea that the town would like to proceed with. So for our next steps is the site visit, like I had mentioned, with DCS. And then I believe that the subcommittee will be reconvening with the Conservation Commission and discussing, and then also determining their next steps or their next task items that they would like to pursue further. So I'm just kind of waiting to hear from them about that. And then the last update was just to inform you, as you have seen in the memo that I had submitted previously, there is some concern with the residential leases, specifically the way that the residential releases were enacted, not necessarily any intent to do so. It's just the way that it all kind of unfolded. And so in order to make sure that we're in legal compliance, we have engaged counsel to make sure that we can figure out the next steps. So I provided the Conservation Commission with a RFP that was done in another smaller community. I think it was either Lexington or Milton, for residential property that they owned, and the process in terms of Chapter 30B and procurement, and to how they are able to use that property, or to allow somebody to lease that property, and what that structure looks like. And then we'll need to, after that, figure out the actual lease aspect. But again, without further direction from DCS, whether or not we can use those properties or how many of them we can use, it makes it a little bit more challenging for us. So we have put a little bit more pressure on DCS to try and get us some of those answers, so that we can figure out how we should best move forward. So again, I'm not looking for the select board to make any decisions. I really think that the subcommittee with the Conservation Commission should be the one that's leading this charge, because I know that they're intimately involved, they've been operating, and they've been doing a tremendous job, and it's all new to them finding out this information as well. So they have taken on the charge, they have taken on the task, they are doing their due diligence. I'm working closely with them, making sure that we are involving town council, that DCS is involved in those conversations, so that there's no surprises, everybody's on the same page. So I would like to continue to keep the select board apprised of the information and of everything that's happening, and then, again, see what we can come up with the subcommittee in terms of a pathway forward, and then open that up to the wider audience as needed, if the select board would agree.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Referring to page 2 here, next to last paragraph. The town may also consider evaluating the possibility of removing a portion of the property from the conservation restriction and Article 97 protections. In the past, we've done an awful lot of conservation restrictions on different property. Never once have I heard that the chances that you could remove the conservation restriction once it's put on. Can you elaborate on that? Because my recollection is that we've always been told that once there's a conservation restriction on it, it's on there forever.
So my understanding is that you can remove certain portions and land out of Article 97 land, but it would take an act of the state legislature. So it is something that's possible. You do need to go through the town meeting. The town meeting would need to vote to allow you to get to that stage, and then again, it would need to go to the state legislature for their vote. So I believe there is a pathway forward if the town wanted to consider that. Whether or not it's a lengthy process, if it's an expensive process, and again, if there's financial implications, are all things that are up in the air right now. I don't have those details. But from general conversations that we had, that is something an idea that's been then tossed around.
Okay. I might have further questions on that at a later time.
Of course.
Steve?
I've done some research on this, looked into a few different things. I appreciate all the work that's going into trying to sort some of this out. I mean, I think the two big things for me are if, it sounds like we're working really well with DCS, but honestly, if they're going to say what we can and can't do, they need to be really clear about what we can and can't do. And I think we should continue to push them really hard to get that information sooner rather than later, because there's a lot of things up in the air based on kind of an unknown. And I think if they have a clear set of guidelines that says this is what you can and can't do, it should be pretty simple for them to come back and say this is what you can and can't do. And so I just would urge that we continue to push them to get that information as soon as possible, and then that we document all of it.
And I think that's like my biggest challenge, to be honest with you, is when I first initially reached out to the state to just get the general information so that I could be better at trying to help the Conservation Commission and taking a look at what they needed to do in order to try and increase revenues and to maybe potentially change some of the things so that we could help make the park more sustainable. It was very wishy-washy. And I said that to the person at DCS. I said, well, this is not fair to me. Like, because now I have to go back to my community and I don't have enough information or concrete information to share with you. And they're like, well, unless you have a document that says that back in 1995, they said you could do this. So we scoured through as many documents as we could in the cabinets and on town meeting warrants, and everything in the vault. We had the town clerk look, and we couldn't find anything specific except for a couple of letters back and forth in 2000. And DCS didn't even have some of that information, so we even had to share that with them. And so the thing that I keep getting or informed by them is that if this was something done today, it would not be allowed. If we granted you this money today, these uses wouldn't be allowed. So the key word being today, like by standards of the program today, this wouldn't be allowable. But they haven't necessarily been able to say why they allowed the uses to exist when they gave us the money and never came back to say you can or you cannot use the property as such, just the intent or the purpose. And that hasn't really been, like you said, like a concrete answer as to the fact that this has been allowed since 1995, and now all of a sudden it's 2025, and we're just trying to do things the right way, and now you're saying it's not allowed, but you're not giving us firm details as what's not allowed.
Just, actually, one thing you said made me think of another question. Did the state legislature have to approve this in the first place, or was it strictly through DCS and DCR?
My understanding was that it was a self-help grant. So it was through so it was the EEA, but we also had extensive town meeting votes. Town meeting vote for borrowing, accepting the money, the donations, the management plan, there was a committee. So there's plenty of votes that were taken at the town meeting level, but from my understanding, it didn't take an act of the legislature because it was done through the self-help grant, which also provided the conservation restriction because it was signed by the Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
I just wasn't sure with the Article 97 restriction if they had to vote on accepting that.
It could have been, and I'm just not familiar with that one, but I do know that the Secretary themselves signed the CR.
Yeah, I was just curious if they might have some additional documentation, that's all.
But we can definitely, I can look further into that for sure.
All right.
I don't know where the records would be, but I do believe that whoever these agencies are, they did approve the use of those buildings as a source of revenue in addition to preservation.
Correct.
Because the question was raised repeatedly by people like myself and others, what about the buildings? How are we going to pay for the buildings? And the response was, this is going to all be part of this park. So my thinking is that whether they acknowledge it or not, they allowed the use of the buildings to generate revenue. They knew of it. They were well informed of it when the property was purchased by the town. And so the grant was funded, the restrictions were put in place, you couldn't build anything else there, right? Stay on the same footprint, yep, got it. Use it for recreation, don't ride motor vehicles through it and all that. This was very clearly stated both at town meetings and in literature to town, and everybody that came out to vote, this is what they voted on. This was the commitment that was made to the town when we took on this property. And so whether they want to acknowledge it by today's standards or not, to me, is a non-issue, because we certainly have town meeting records of these discussions. We must have literature of these discussions. There was so much information provided, and it was such a huge report. There was just so much was done, so much legwork was done to make sure that the town could take on this property and that it would be able to some degree, we were hoping complete self-sustain. That was the hope, but at least, sustain.
And there are documentations to support that. There is the management plan, there is the committee report that was done, there was the green book, they called it. So there is
Right.
all that documentation. But the vote itself, the vote that the people took, the yes and no's, nowhere in that vote does it say that these uses are the uses. So everything that they voted on, they didn't vote that this is the use of the park, this is the use of the facility. You voted to put monies forward to pay and have VZ become town property for passive recreation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The vote itself wasn't to use the property as you're stating. It was to accept the property under the terms of the self-help grant as designated by the Division of Conservation Services. So the language itself, like the supporting document, 100%, there was always that conversation.
And I wonder, did you look through the Board of Selectmen meetings to see if there were votes of the Board of Selectmen about that?
Yes, and they had to vote because they had to
Right.
authorize, yes. So there was conversation.
And discussion, yeah.
That's not binding per,
No, but it reflects understanding. If the state did not want us to be able, there was already a resident living in the house at the bottom of the hill when we bought that property. If the state intended for us to throw them out, they never said so. There was a tenant in there when we bought the property at the bottom of the hill. That existed, okay? And, you know what I mean? Come on. We're doing everything on the town side that we had to do. We had numerous discussions, I know in Select Board and Finance Board at town meetings, about the buildings and about how the town would be able to afford them, and this was the way. This was the only way. The land itself wasn't going to generate any funding, So, to me, it's like common sense. And if they don't want to acknowledge that back then, whoever was sitting in their chairs accepted this, that's on them, because this was what was presented to this town.
And they do recognize that, and they do recognize the guidance that was sought by the town in regards to the uses of the property back in 2000 and 2001, where they issued decisions that stated that certain uses, whether could or could not be allowed. At one point in time, the COA was talked about putting up there, so they had to seek confirmation whether or not they would allow that. Then there was another use that was proposed in terms of a therapeutic place, and they needed to seek that guidance from
Yep.
this DCS on that. So they did provide information to the town on what they considered to be an allowable use. But after a while, we stopped seeking their confirmation and just went on understanding that this was allowed. Like you said, there was one residence, now there's 3.
Okay,
So it
what-
was just an
yeah.
assumption. So I'm not saying that anything was wrong, I'm just saying that the assumptions were made over time in order to make the facility self-sustaining, and now they're saying that we've grown the facility beyond the uses that were naturally considered at the point in time, and whether or not we have that document that says those uses are allowed or not allowed hasn't been made clear by any party.
Well, we were allowed to have the one tenant. They didn't tell us to vacate. If their intention back then, and like you said, the intention was we can't rent this property out, then they should have said at the time the town took over this property, we had to throw the family out at the bottom of the hill. And they never told us that. They never issued that as part of their decision to fund this and allow this, or the management plan for it. I guess that's what I keep coming back to. I remember reading the management plan. It was really a large document. And I mean, I'm glad to look through it again, but I don't ever remember reading that the tenants at the bottom of the hill couldn't be allowed to remain there.
We can certainly bring DCS in, and Vanessa can explain to you from her point of view as to what her agency is willing to do, but that's the information that's been relayed to me.
Well, I'm just wondering from our town attorney's point of view, protecting the town.
And they've
Again,
issued
we
that
purchased
letter.
this property with a rental income on it. And now they're telling us that we can't have a rental income, right?
Town council sent the letter confirming that if that is in fact the case, then they don't support, under Article 97, the use of the property in that way.
But what about back at the time when we bought it, based on the letters that they sent us and the documents they provided? And this is the information, this is the only information the town had to review to vote on this. So I guess I just don't understand why all of a sudden they pull the rug out instead of just working collaboratively with the town to figure something out.
They are
These
working
okay,
collaboratively.
because it's historic buildings up there anyway. I mean, they qualify, right?
But under Article 97, that's not necessarily concerned with history, they're concerned with passive recreation.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
But it
And-
was something that was brought up as part of the subcommittee, and that was
Yeah.
something that Stephanie spoke very fondly about. And I think that it's something that they'd be willing to acknowledge in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
But the conversations are still in motion, so there's been no decisions. But to
Right.
Steve's point, we need to get some firm
Right,
guidance.
and then also, the Veazey family gave us money too, and then
Correct.
their intention, I'm sure, was that was their summer home, right? That was what was behind that.
So they donated $200,000, and one of their stipulations was the naming of the facility.
Right, but I mean, behind that, obviously,
But the donation was made to keep the name in
Okay.
perpetuity to be
and
easy.
I don't think they thought we were going to flatten the buildings, bulldoze. I guess, this is, just seems somewhat bureaucratic, if the word I would use, and like, I guess I would just wonder, I'm sure that there was a lot of meetings and that the people from the state were here at some point. I wasn't on the board, I know Bill Dark was, and some others, and they had a lot of meetings on this. It wasn't something that was just like, oh yeah, let's go buy it. And again, the question of how the buildings would be sustained was part of the whole process, and that drew in the votes because it was made clear that we're going to try and sustain the buildings with revenue that would come from these buildings.
And that's kind of where this all came from.
Yeah,
Is because
yeah.
we were looking at ways to try and increase the amount of revenue that was coming into Veazey
Yep.
Memorial Park. And we went through and we had a CPC grant to do a feasibility study in which the individual identified that the income from the residential units was supplementing the operation of Veazey Memorial Park. So the management group decided to push more of the wedding venues and the commercial venue in order to increase that revenue to alleviate some of that burden and to
Right,
make it
right.
more
Yeah,
self-sustaining.
and- yeah.
Not in any way trying to do anything wrong, but trying to take the report and do something to make
Right.
more money so that it wouldn't fall back to the taxpayers. And unfortunately, they did such a good job of it, they advertised more about weddings and whatnot. So now the state's even more concerned because they're saying that now we've overstepped in terms of making it a wedding venue and not a park. And so now we're trying to just reconsider and take a step back. And again, just make sure everyone's on the same page, because there's a lot of information and there's a lot of history here. So it's
I
just
know.
kind of
Wow.
sort through the weeds and figure out the pathway forward.
So they worked really hard, they did a good job, and now they're going to be punished for it. Of course. Okay, yeah, I get, their definitions of things, but I also feel that they were never misinformed about the town's intentions with that park, especially the buildings, because we already had one rental unit going on. And it was, we had a vacant building at the top of the hill that had to be cared for. How are we going to do that? So I think those things were most likely stated to the state. I don't think anybody hid anything.
But I think the issue is that if we don't have it documented, it's
Okay,
hearsay, and-
well, it's not hearsay. I think you could probably find it in the selectmen board meetings, minutes and discussions, because they were prominent in that decision, as was conservation. I'm sure the minutes of both will be reflective of that and maybe indicate who from the state was present.
Maybe, but it doesn't
And
sound
gave-
like we've
waved the
turned that
green
up yet,
flag.
right?
Exactly. We haven't found the document. We found plenty of documents discussing everything that you just said. But just like in the terms of a contract, the contract itself is binding. And the
Okay.
minutes and the discussion and the intent are important, but it's not necessarily what you vote and legally binding to make sure that you're
Okay.
compliant. So it makes it a lot more challenging.
Yeah, I understand.
But we can definitely go through the documents again. Like I said, we tried to enlist the help of the conservation agent, Annie, myself. We had the town clerk looking through documents, the assistant town clerk, just trying to find any information to say, no, this is what they said that we could do. We found preliminary documents, we found preliminary applications, we
Okay.
found initial correspondence, but nothing that said after that these were allowed uses.
Okay, so, but for now, nobody is going to step in and tell us to stop everything.
100%. They've said
Okay,
that we
good.
can definitely work with the DCS to find a
Okay.
pathway forward, and we're doing
Good.
that.
Good,
The only
okay.
issue, like I said, of matter is the fact that the residential leases are not legal. So
Okay,
that's the only issue that we're up against right now. And that's something that town council is looking into.
okay, so those can be made legal.
So we're looking to see exactly how long we can extend or we can allow, but we will need to provide notice for the individuals. But we are working with DCS, we are working
Oh,
with town
okay.
council.
I
We
see,
have
I see.
informed the subcommittee, no action, nothing will take place until it's discussed with the board. You will see any documentation, if any documentation is going to be sent out, prior to it being sent out.
Okay, so the DCF has said that our leases are not legal, or our town?
Town council has said that our leases are not legal.
That's bad when our own town attorney tells us. That works against what we need to do, because it's completely, pulls the rug out again on that property. So hopefully we can extend for a while to get time to pay the bills. Wow.
Go ahead, Ed.
I remember when this came to the town meeting floor originally, and I had, prior to the former town clerk, Dick Abbott, passing away, he looked into some of this information. Also, the town selectman's assistant at the time, Nancy Lewandowski, looked into it, because it was also brought up at the time that no town funds would be used to support the park. And that was, everybody that was there remembers that, but it was never an amendment on the vote. And the same thing was, the same thing that you're talking about are the rentals, well, that was to raise the money to support the park. But again, that was never an amendment that went to the floor.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned, but no amendments. And so it stood on what the article said, without any additions. And that, the house down the bottom of the hill, that was a rental property when the nuns had the building up
Yep.
there. As well as the cottage out in the back, the little, like a 12 by 12 building. That was rented at the time. But it is what it is.
All right. Any other comments?
No.
Questions? No? Okay.
And thank you for working on it. I don't mean to put you on the spot like that. I just,
No, that's, I want to try and get the information. I want to be helpful, whatever the solution may be.
Okay.
So it's definitely helpful to get as much background as I possibly
Mm-hmm.
can in order to find a different location to look for the document or to have some history, to add some additional context to DCS.
yeah.
This isn't going to be a quick fix by any means.
No.
With all the research you have to do.
100%.
Yep. Oh, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if I can make one.
Sure, sure.
Brian Lynch, 7 Star Road. Rebecca mentioned it, and while you're on the topic of VZ, she mentioned the study by Innes Associates that we paid $20,000 for. I assume you all have a copy of it. I assume that you received it at some point in time. I don't know if any of you have read through it thoroughly or not, but I think it would help you see some of the overlying issues with VZ Park and the funding and whatnot, if you look at that, because it'll kind of show you where the money's coming in, where the money's going out, what is taking care of itself, what isn't, as far as like people getting paid up there and things like that. So while this topic is still active and live, and it's coming up before you on your agendas, I think having a good understanding of that study would benefit, because it'll give you a lot of insight on what is taking place up there, you know, from a financial standpoint especially. Because I think that's one of the biggest things we have to look at, because I've heard you in your meeting tonight, we're talking about postage stamps
Yeah.
for censuses and for study committees and surveys. I mean, if we're nickel and dime in postage, we're spending a lot more than nickels and dimes, you know. So I think it warrants your attention. So that's all I really have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have on the agenda, the review of DESI cost apportionment
Oh, such a fun topic.
methodology.
Yes. Are you going to do the thing, do the honors on the up above, Rebecca, or not? Yes. No, because whenever I do it from my computer, it's so problematic. I know, right? Everybody knows their own equipment, and you don't know how to use anybody else's. I will get better on this stuff. So, I sort of asked for this agenda item myself, and hope I'm not overstepping and boring you to tears before the holidays, but, 60% of our budget, or sometimes more, is our school budget. And so, I've heard at different times people talk about the Chapter 7, I'm looking for the right light switch, is it this guy? Yeah. The Chapter 70 is not enough, the students aren't growing, why are we paying more, why doesn't this work? And one of the things, like a few years back, that I got stuck on, is like looking at the situation, saying, why is it we're able to afford our assessment, and now every year, it seems like we can't afford it, or we're teetering on this brink of, an override, and we're trying to back them down because we don't think our town will vote the override, and if the other two towns voted, then we're in trouble, we're on the hook for the override. So I just thought to just I always look at the information in total, not just the Chapter 70, not just the students, but what's going on with how they do our minimum contribution, because whenever I've looked at this formula, it's really bothered me a lot. And so I tried to put this in the context of raising questions instead of telling you, what do I think? Because I think it's more important that everybody thinks about this. So everybody should know that our assessment from Pentucket, just like it is from Whittier, and is a two-step. It's a minimum requirement, boom, you pay this amount, and then after that, it's just per student allocation. That's a known thing. Maybe what you don't know about is the formula that is used to come out with this minimum requirement. So what happens is in total, they create a foundation budget. And the foundation budget is created for a whole school system, right? It's not created for Groveland but then that foundation is allocated to each of the towns, okay? And that's kind of unusual because in a city like Haverhill, the foundation budget is the foundation budget, and the minimum requirement for Haverhill is the minimum required for Haverhill. But in Pentucket, the foundation budget is for Pentucket, and then it's allocated to each of the towns as if we had our own school system, which we don't. And then in order for them to develop a minimum required contribution for each town, they go into our local wealth factors. They go into our assessment data, they go into our aggregate income data, and they create what they perceive to be our ability to pay, our contribution effort yield. And they create it for each town separately, as if we were our own school district. But then they look at what they allocated for the foundation budget. And if they perceive that your allocation of the wealth factor exceeds 82.5%, they back it down. They take the lesser of. And that's happening in our district. Merrimack and Groveland are being assessed based on their aggregate wealth and assessment data for the minimum contribution, and West Newbury is perceived to be already paying more than it should. Okay? That's kind of this in a nutshell, all of this mumbo jumbo. And so then what I provided here on this slide, if you want to slide all the way down to the charts, please, thank you. I kind of blew through a lot of the definitional stuff, and I figure if you're interested in it, go back and read it all. But this kind of walks you through how they do it, okay? They take a percentage of our valuation, and they say, oh, your homes are worth more money, therefore you can pay more to your school. Is that true? Do you have that money in your pocket? No, and especially in a town where people have lived there a long time, it's even less true than in a place where there's a lot more turnover, right? Then they look at the aggregate income, not per capita, not per person, but aggregate, and they say, well, you can pay this much based on that, okay? And they come back with that combined effort yield, the CEY. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but that tells you how much they think you can pay based on how wealthy you are. And they perceive that Groveland is wealthy based on their analysis, based on these percentage things that they just pushed together. But if they took us as a district and they collapsed the valuations and the income into one district and created the minimum required, the local CEY for the district, and then allocated it to the towns based on per pupil, perhaps that would be more fair. Because it's like going into Haverhill, taking the wealthy neighborhood and then the less wealthy and then the middle and giving them all different minimum contributions. They don't do that in other school systems, only in the regionals. And I personally have not found any literature that says this is what you do in a regional school district. Everything points to, and all their examples talk about, a holistic entity, a school district. And that's why I think, yes, Pentucket's right, they need more Chapter 70 money, and that would help us. But if this continues, could we be in trouble, even with more Chapter 70 money? Could this be a problem for us? So in the second slide, if you go to the next one, where it gets into the final columns, you'll see that, yes, that West Newbury was perceived to be 131% above what they should be paying, so they got the lesser of. And it shifted the percentages. So in the previous slide, we were at, I forget what year I used, probably a couple years ago I did this. We were at like 34% of the budget, and then when you get to the second slide, because of the shift in West Newbury, now we're at 39% of the total minimum contributions, not student-wise. This is just the bundle of required minimums. But that's the first plunk on our assessment. And I guess my concern is, like, where is this going? They've opened up the sessions, and I say guilty. I didn't get into the sessions. I was at work. I didn't get into it, but I wondered, would they even listen? They seem so intent on this overly complicated formula. And the problem that I think we should be so concerned about is that the changes to our combined effort yield do not take into account Proposition 2.5%. There's absolutely no tie-in to the fact that we can't get that extra money without raising taxes, and our voters have a right to vote this down. Okay? We're already paying over the minimum in our school district, so I guess I'm wondering why they're bothering us, where we're already exceeding the minimum required contribution. Shouldn't it then just be, you're already exceeding the minimum, good for you, right? We're funding our school system more than the minimum, which is intentional, right? We want a good school system. But when you start to take one member town and cap them on the minimum, it does shift the whole allocation process. And I don't know if this happens in other regional school districts. It would take more time than I have available to figure that out. But I went back, and on the last slide, if you can go back go forward 2 slides. I know this is a lot of mumbo jumbo. It is every time I look at it. I said, okay, what would happen if our percentage went from 37.99% to 38.99%? And that would just that change based on assessment data and aggregate income, they determined we could pay more, could increase our assessment over $200,000. That's without students being increased. So I'm really concerned about the future of this formula and how it's applying to regional school districts. And I think what the school is saying is correct. I mean, if you go to the last slide, they need more Chapter 70 because what's happening is the Chapter 70, the way they're allocating Chapter 70 is to fill a gap, a perceived gap between the minimums and the foundation. And when we're overpaying, they're saying, oh, well, this is the held harmless thing or whatever they call it. We'll just give you, $150 or whatever per student. But that's not enough in today's market to sustain the teachers and the programming that we have. So I guess my point is, and maybe it's not nice to raise this right before a big holiday, I have more questions than answers. And I have more concerns as this goes forward, that they're very dug in on this aggregate wealth factor being a part of this, and I don't see how you can possibly sustain this kind of a calculation, especially in a regional school district that's already paying above the minimum across the board, because it's skewing our assessments. It introduces, like, what happens when the assessment data increases for these apartments? Oh, yeah, oh, yes, exactly. What happens then? Are we going to get a big splat on the minimum, and that's going to knock us up to 40% of the minimum required? Now, that's not 40% of the full budget, but it's 40% of the minimum required contribution bundle, which is the first step in our assessment. And it's just, it makes me cringe, because to me, it's not based on anything factual that the town actually can do. Initially, they did not use this formula when we regionalized K through 12. They used municipal revenue growth factor, which I support that. That's our new growth. And they increased the minimum contribution by that, and they weren't going after assessment data and aggregate income data. And I just look at this and I think, okay, we're not too bad off right now. When you get to the bottom line in our assessment, and maybe Rebecca's looked at it, overall, we're paying more or less our student percentage share of the budget. We're kind of close, right? Yeah, I mean, but when you look at our overall operating assessment, with the minimum contribution factored in, we're still the percentage we are of the total assessments. It's close to our student percentage. Okay. But what if they decide to change this formula more? They're not really looking at regional school districts. That's my opinion, my thought. I don't think they're looking at the regional school districts when they're creating this formula. They're looking at a standalone school district, like Newburyport, aggregate wealth, aggregate income, what should these people be able to pay? And they're not thinking about that in a regional district, this kind of calculation could start throwing money around between member towns, right? Is that really fair? I guess that's my question. Do we feel this is fair? Or do you think this is something that could be sustained? And is this something we just shouldn't worry about until it hits us in the face? I don't know. And that's it. Merry Christmas. I know. What a night to drop this one on you, right? No wonder Jason's not here.
Steve, you look like you're ready to burst.
No. I think it was interesting at the State of the School meeting where
Yep.
we did that presentation to that larger working group around, some of the Chapter 70 funding.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that they're looking at this and having conversations about it. But I think your point, Kathy, is valid. This will become a problem, I think, very, very quickly. I also think we have to acknowledge the fact that the assessment's not going to go down. I don't think that's, much like taxes are never.
No, I
The
get-
assessment's
no.
not going to go down.
No.
So I think what we need to be focused on is how and what can we do to manage the rate of growth? Until they adjust the formula so that that rate is more sustainable, we have to look at, because things like property values impact it. Well, that means new buildings impact it.
Yep.
More people coming into town, which there's reasons why we have to do that, but we have to be 2 steps ahead of that with every one of those decisions, whether it's new development, whether it's adding additional rental units, things like that, which we have to do those things, but we also have to factor in the impact of them on the school budget because there is one. And it's indirect in some cases, right? It may not be that somebody with kids in the school is coming, or that children that will attend the school is going into a property, but if there's a new property, a new rental property, that's going to impact the assessment. So we
Obviously,
have to
they'll
be
think
thinking about
we have more
all
money
of
to
that,
spend. Yep. Yep.
and understanding what the impact is. And, maybe as those things are taking place in town, because they're going to happen, part of that process needs to be modeling out based on what we know, what the impact on the assessment is. I think we have to think about that. And, hopefully those working group meetings, bear some fruit and they make some changes to how they're doing that assessment. I also think they need to get some of the special education budgeting under control, in terms of funding sources and things like that, because that is a big burden on the budget, but something that we need to do. So it's complicated. It's definitely complicated. I just think we need to stay a couple of steps ahead of it and try to understand the impact of things that are happening in town on that budget or on that assessment so that we can manage the budget.
Yeah, well, I think the big question is, because I believe it is legal for us to go to just a flat-out assessment based on students, if we chose at some point. The question is, what about when this process benefits us? You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I keep looking at the trend and trying to figure out, because of the arbitrary caps that they put in there, that kind of skew the minimums, that's my concern, that somebody is tweaking this formula that doesn't live here, doesn't work here, doesn't really care about what our minimum is or isn't. They're just doing, some kind of economic forecast, and they wanted to figure out how they could say that wealthy communities should pay more. And Proposition 2.5% says everybody gets to vote whether they want to pay more. So, you know, how can the state come out and say, well, you can afford to pay more because your house is worth more? Everybody knows whose house value has gone up, who's been there 25 years. That money's not in your pocket till you sell that house. So how can this be part of a formula that works? And in the meantime, what do we do about it? Do we just keep our eye on it? Keep our eye on the valuation data? Take a look-see about what's happening with aggregate income? I mean, they're going to have to use I'm not sure if they even use our town census or the 10-year census. I'm not sure where they go to. It might be the 10-year. Yeah, I think they might stick with the 10-year income. But the assessment data, they do update. I've noted that.
We do have an opportunity to review our equalized evaluations like we have in the past to make sure that those make sense. And we work with the Board of Assessors to do that.
Okay,
And we have an appeal process, but we have to have the data to support whether or not we believe that that needs to be changed.
oh yeah, pull it down.
So that's a thing. If it doesn't match, then we're kind of stuck.
Yep.
Right.
No, but I mean, it's unfortunate that this kind of stuff is coming into play in a school assessment, you know, because it pits one town against another, which is not what we want, to be working against our other resident towns. But it feels unfair, and we are paying a fairly high percentage of the school budget at this point. So it's just things to keep in your mind.
Would it be possible to get a copy of the formulas that you used for the calculation?
I can give you, yeah, I can give you the link to the,
That would be great.
yeah, then you can have a good time. Watch, you know. I actually tried doing us like one district, and I thought, that's better, why don't we do that?
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
This is one district.
I don't know if that would be something Desi would be open to, allowing us to go in as a singular district and get our Chapter 70 that way, instead of individually.
I wonder if it would be interesting to see if they do that with any other regional school districts.
Yeah, like Triton would be a good one to
Yeah,
look at.
there's a few.
The smaller ones that have just a few towns like us, that's where I think it's more obvious.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that might be something,
Yep,
to dig.
but anyway, that was my holiday gift, just to get that out from me. Now it's on your shoulders.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Always glad to help.
So next on the agenda is a Whittier Regional Agreement Amendment Committee update. This was a report from Town Representative Select Board Member Jason Naves. He is absent today, so this will have to be tabled until our next meeting. For appointments and resignations, we don't have any to report today. Approval of the minutes. There's November 10th Select Board meeting, November 10th Joint Select Board meeting with the Light Commission, and November 24th Select Board meeting. All of these, looks like all of us were in attendance, so make a motion for all three.
I just have one. Oh, I guess we can have the motion first.
Okay.
There's
Oh.
just a,
Okay, I make a motion, I've reviewed all three, and I make a motion to approve all three as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Just on the November 24th meeting minutes, on number 8, item B, there's a motion, and who seconded is missing from the notes.
Oh,
It says seconded by, and it's blank.
do we know?
I don't, off the top of my head.
November 10th, you said?
November 24th.
24th. Oh, let me-
Probably one of the ones where we both did it, and she's like, I have no idea.
They canceled each other out.
Yeah.
Other than that, they looked good.
What number was it again?
8, and then number B, or
8B.
number 8, section B.
Oh, I see it. I guess it was you or Ed
Yeah.
who wants to get credit.
You did the first one that day.
I
so-
guess I can take credit if you
Okay.
need someone to take credit.
Okay.
Excellent.
It was probably me.
All right. Well, all in favor with that amendment?
Okay.
All right, 4 in favor, 1 absent. Old or unfinished business, we have the US bicycle route discussion and possible vote. But that was,
Yes, for that, if the board could continue to table that item, we will have an update for you at the next meeting with the potential options.
excellent.
Okay.
And then the field use permit fees is the same?
Yes, Select Board Member Baker got me the information. We just haven't had an opportunity to kind of dive into it, but you will also have materials available at the next meeting.
Perfect. Any other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting? Nothing? Okay. Town administrator's time.
Thank you. So I only have two updates, really. One, in regards to the Highway Department accident, just to let the board know that on December 19th, the Division of Labor Standards had come out and conducted a review over at the Highway Yard. They walked through the incident with personnel and the area, and we are awaiting their final report, which will be shared with you once we receive it. In addition, we just wanted to alert the board that the highway superintendent has issued a workplace safety policy, which employees will be required to sign. So we are putting in new provisions in place to make sure that future accidents do not occur in the workplace. So just wanted to, again, update the board, and we'll have more information to share at a later date. And then also to let the board know with the trash and recycling contract, after reviewing the response to the request for information, that we received two haulers who had responded to that, and we are going to move forward with contract negotiations with G Mello Disposal Corp. So the proposal expected to generate long-term cost savings and provide more predictable budgeting over the duration of the contract. So we are happy to move forward with that. Once we have that drafted, that will come before the select board for your review and approval as well. And then in standard form with the new format I'm trying to implement, permits, meetings, and administrative actions are listed. I did provide an updated financial snapshot. This is more so in line with any of the areas that we're concerned about spending at this particular point in time. I know it didn't come out in the printed copy, but the green are showing that we're good, which is in the majority of our line items. There's only one that's highlighted yellow, which is something that we're watching, and that's the technology line item. A lot of times that's because subscriptions and licenses come at the beginning of the year, and they're much larger. But we also know that, if you recall, this is the first year that we took all of the technology under the brand-new line item, so that's taking every single technology line item from each individual department. So we are watching that closely to make sure that we will be able to budget accordingly for next fiscal year and that we don't run into any trouble this current fiscal year. But otherwise, there's no significant flags. And then, as you'd seen through the town accountant provided their quarterly financial or the monthly financials, which you received in your email. So highlighting some of the information that she provided about revenue collection, but we're looking to be in good shape. We're representing approximately 46% of the projected annual revenue for this fiscal year. Property taxes remains our largest source of revenue, and other revenue sources are coming in as expected. We have the grants listed. Not much has changed from the last chart that was submitted. I think it's pretty much the same. I think maybe one item might have changed slightly. Projects in progress, community preservation projects, grants, and then a list of meetings, events, and seminars. So if there's something specific that you'd like additional information on, I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide that information.
I just had one thought. As I drove by the Valley Screw Building today, it looked even more collapsed. Do we check on that to see how the collapse is going?
We have, and so we are also looking to see if there's grant money available to work with the consultant to see if there's another approach we can take. But again, it becomes very difficult because it's private property. So it's not exactly like there's tons of funding available, but we're still trying, and there might be a loophole there that we're exploring. But we have talked about it internally with the building commissioner,
Okay.
and he is actually scheduled to go out, especially with the recent weather and some of the snowfall.
Yeah.
It too has looked like the roof has further deteriorated, expectingly so.
Well, yes, it's part of the watch.
Right, right.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Just one, what's the latest update on the Salem Street Dam? I feel like we haven't really talked about that recently.
So we have essentially closed out our notice of intent with the, well, I don't think it's closed out officially. I don't think we have the notice of certificate of compliance, but we've received an extension to finish the work, which has all been completed in terms of the pathway that they had put down and putting up the additional boulders. I believe they also put up the guardrail, but there might be some further stabilization we need to do in the spring, I believe, but otherwise, the project is essentially completed. So we received a dams and seawall grant, I forget the total, I think it's about $94,000 to do a design and permitting for either repair or removal of the dam. So we're currently working with GZA on that. So they're taking a closer look at that initial report that you received that listed out about, like, I think it was $1.5 million for the actual, like, replacement in their proposed design. So this takes us a little bit further and kind of identifies exactly what they need to do, what permitting needs to be done. So we're still in that process. They just submitted their quarterly report since it's a reimbursement grant, so they submitted an invoice as well. So once I receive the final report, because it was the draft form, I'll submit that to the board, and you can see exactly what they've been working on.
Sure. And will that show us how successful the stabilization efforts were? Or will that be the next, I don't know when the next, like, evaluation of the dam is.
So they have to, per their inspection schedule with the Office of Dam and Safety, I believe I have to double check. It was either just recently in December, January, or it was in February, April.
Okay.
But
So
I know we're due for a report.
soon we'll have some information on whether that stabilization effort was successful.
Well, I just don't know if they'll do that. So we'll definitely tell you the condition of the dam.
But we should be able to compare the
Yes.
last report and this one to, or maybe the last two reports and this one and see.
Correct, yes.
Ed, any questions or comments?
Under the select board reports?
Under the town administrator?
Oh, no, I don't have any questions. No.
I just had one question with the trash and recycling, kind of brought it up, and I wish I took a picture, but I didn't want to make anyone feel bad. I was driving by one of the streets that, the private streets with all the homes that they bring their trash down to the end. There was probably a line of 12 of them. Every single one of them was, like, the bar that for the automation was pointed the wrong way. All 12.
Oh, my God.
With the, I love automation, I'm like, but I'm just, does that go in, does that affect, like, I know we're not in the automation contract yet, but does that affect any sort of cost that they have to get out and turn it around?
I'm not sure. I can
Okay.
take a look into that. I know that with the barrels that we just purchased and some of the others that I've seen in other communities, there's that arrow that says, please
Yes.
point this way, and I know it's an education
Yes.
type of thing, but I'm not sure if it actually impedes them from actually trying to pick up the barrel, but that would make sense since it's kind of
Yeah.
It has to,
essential to the operation of
Yeah.
lifting.
yeah.
Yeah, I was a little shocked. Probably one person did it and then everyone else just followed.
We should record a video of proper trash barrel placing.
Yeah, we should do a video on YouTube. That'd be
Right.
fun, yeah.
You guys work on that. And then you see how many likes you get.
I'll get a picture next week if it happens again. But maybe they're listening and they're like, oh no, we better not do that anymore. Okay, so next is Select Board time and reports. We'll start with you, Ed.
Yes, I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully, 2026 goes a heck of a lot better than 2025 and a lot slower. And also, recently I come across some information on the schools from the U.S. News and World Report 2025, 2026 rankings. The Groveland Public Schools, Bagnell School, 44% not proficient in math, 48% not proficient in reading. The middle school, 54% not proficient in math, 49 not proficient in reading. The high school, 39% not proficient in math, 23% not proficient in reading, and 44% not proficient in science. I think these are kind of surprising numbers, and if you look at some of the surrounding communities, they're doing a little better than Groveland. I don't know whether we should have the superintendent come in, try to explain this. How do we get these up? And What's the problem? Maybe the school committee come in, maybe the superintendent, I don't know if anybody has any suggestions on that, but I think we should.
Would it be the school committee? I don't know.
Typically during the state of the school, I missed it this year, they do tend to do an overview of the performance within each school building and within the regional middle and high school. And I didn't, well, it must have been in the presentation.
Yes.
But we could definitely ask the superintendent or the assistant superintendent is more in, whoever's more in charge of the testing data would probably be the best. They could tell us who would be best to discuss testing data. But just to be clear, they could do the Bagnell, but then when you're in the middle and high school, we're dealing with
Right.
students from all three towns. And I know that coming out of the pandemic, I know that the schools all noticed a dip. I thought schools were noting an increasing improvement, but maybe that's what we need to have them come in and talk to us about what those ratings mean. Is that the MCAS scores or is it something else?
It just said, it was just entitled 2025, 2026 rankings.
Okay.
So it doesn't say there was MCAS scores, probably was not if it encompassed all three schools.
Well, I don't know what other tests are given in the elementary school other than the MCAS score test. We don't use any federal testing that I'm aware of.
I
Yeah.
don't know, I just reporting what I.
Well,
what I-
no, I think it's a good question. I mean, we could ask them to come in and whoever's better at discussing the testing data.
Yeah.
Maybe you could give Rebecca the information from that article so that she could be clear on what we're looking for. If we don't ask the question, we never get an answer,
Right.
right?
All right, Steve?
Sure. So I wanted to take a moment to address the bomb threat at the Bagnell School today. As a parent with children in the school, I know firsthand the deep anxiety that an event like this causes for families. First, I want to extend a sincere thank you to our first responders and the school administration. Their swift and professional response ensured that children remained safe and the situation was resolved. We're fortunate to have such a dedicated team protecting our school. And while I know that everyone is relieved that the threat was not credible, it's a difficult reminder of the weight that words carry. I want to encourage parents and guardians to have a conversation with their children in the coming days and talk to them about the seriousness of making threats and the long-term consequences of such actions, not just for the school, but for themselves and for the community. I think that our schools need to be a place of safety and learning, and we all play a part in keeping them that way. And then on a lighter note, I think I want to wish everyone in town a happy holiday season, and I hope that everyone gets to spend some time with their family and have a safe and happy new year.
Thank you. And Kathy?
Yeah, just a general good wishes and goodwill. There's Hanukkah, there's Christmas, there's Kwanzaa. Whatever you're celebrating, hopefully it will be fun and happy. And, I think most of us all just look forward to spending time with our family and friends is the big deal, right? To slow down and just not overschedule ourselves and spend time with each other. And I think, the incident at the Bagnell is a reminder again of just how important it is to spend time with your family and talk to your children. And yes, the whole community will work to keep them all safe, as they always do. And thank you to our first responders and our police and our firefighters, and also to our town administrator for keeping us in the loop. I had heard about it at my school just because some parents had children there, and it was nice to get the update and know that everything was executed according to the plan, according to a plan that had been laid down. And so, these are the times we live in. These are the things we need to get used to. Just like fire drills, we need to know, what do you do? Well, you follow the directions. Get on the bus. They're going to take you to a safe place. There you go. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Hopefully we'll get a little white stuff tomorrow, right? Snow. maybe a little bit, just enough
a
to
little.
make it look pretty.
Just a coating.
Just, yeah, like this much would be nice.
I can work with that.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I'll echo what everyone else said. For those that celebrate, I wish you all a happy and healthy holiday season, and not for too much snow, just a coating.
We gotcha.
Okay. And then the last part for our correspondence, there's correspondence from the town administrator and zoning enforcement officer regarding encroachment on 890 Salem Street. That was included in our packet.
Yep.
Our next scheduled meeting of the select board will be Monday, January 5th at 6:30. So it looks like we have concluded our agenda for December 22nd. So could I have a motion to close the meeting at 8:59 PM?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
See you next year.
See you next year, everybody. Thank you.